There's a story about a grandfather who's taking a nap on his living room couch. His grandchildren were in the house, and they decided to play a practical joke on him. They went and got out the stinky feta cheese that their mom liked to eat, and they went and they rubbed it on his mustache. They giggled and ran out of the room and hid behind a chair as they waited in anticipation for their grandpa to wake up. It didn't take long, and he opened his eyes, and he sniffed, and he said, "This room stinks." And then he sat up, walked out of the living room, went into the kitchen, and he said, "This kitchen stinks." Walked back through the living room, back to the bedroom. "This whole house stinks." Thought it must be outside. So he walked out the front door, stood on his porch, took a big whiff, and he said, "The whole world stinks." Is that the kind of person you would want to go to when you needed to rejoice or you needed to weep? Do others choose you to be the person to tell their triumphs or their times of tragedy and tribulation? To truly connect with others, we as Christians must obey and the command in Romans 12:15, which says, "Rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn." Validation is something that I craved as a child, but did not receive. From a very young age, many times I thought to myself, when I grow up, I will never make anybody feel like I don't care about them or what they have to say. I read dozens and dozens of books and watched mentors and people that I admired, people that made me feel validated, and I took notice of what they did and made a choice early in my life that I would always be a person who would rejoice with those who rejoice and who would weep with those who weep. First, I'm going to describe to you what it means to rejoice with those who rejoice. Second, we'll talk a little bit about what it means to mourn with those who mourn. Third, I'm going to discuss how you can actually do that. To truly connect with others, we as Christians must obey the command in Romans 12:15. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Author Josh McDowell wrote about affirmation in his book, A's, Steps to a Loving Family and Relationship. One of the most effective ways, he says, to affirm another person, even when you don't fully understand them, is to affirm their feelings. To affirm feelings means to validate, to confirm. I like how the New Living Testament says this verse. It says, "When others are happy, be happy with them. If they're sad, share in their sorrow." Affirming their feelings tells them that they're real individuals with valid feelings. When we can identify with their feelings, whether it be excitement or disappointment, we let them know that we really care and that they are understood for who they are and that it's okay and that we are authentic human beings. So what does it look like to rejoice with those who rejoice? As I thought about this, I thought the best way to describe how to rejoice with those who rejoice is to show you what not to do. Okay, so here's the situation. Let's say someone you know approaches you and they say, "Guess what? We just bought a house!" And they look at you in anticipation. Okay, the first way not to react would be, that's kind of dumb, don't you think? I mean, with the economy and all, I don't know if that was the best choice. Okay, here's the second way not to react. Oh, were you talking to me? What did you say? Here's the third way not to react. And here's the fourth way not to react. "Cool! oh my gosh, my husband and I are totally looking for a house. In fact, I have a whole Pinterest board. I have hundreds and hundreds of pictures of exactly the kind of house I want. I want a house out in the country with pigs and chickens and horses and lots of dogs and cats. And oh, I can't wait to show you. I'm so excited about us buying a house. Don't want to do that. We've heard the common proverb that says, God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in proportion. That's easy to say, but not really very hard. Or excuse me, it's easy to say, but it's hard to do, as is this speech. Easy to write, hard to deliver. So when I went over those 4 examples, did someone pop into your head? Do you know someone like that? Has that happened to you? Have you ever been that person who has reacted in that way? There's a little saying that goes, life would be easy if it weren't for people. And while that's pretty funny, there's a problem with that. Unless you decide to be one of those people who says, I'm going to move up to a cabin in the mountains so I don't ever have to be with anybody ever again. I'm done with people. Yeah, you could do that, but it's not very practical. If you're going to go through life, we virtually have to do it with other people. I love what Nelson Mandela stated when he said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. But if you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. So how do we do it? McDowell says that it takes an incredible amount of desire and discipline to clear the brain and lasso the tongue, which allows us to really listen and connect with others. But it's more than just the simple act of keeping silent. It starts with the heart. So first, he said, desire. You have to really want it. If you don't really care and you really don't want it, but you're a Christian, then pray for desire. Pray for wanting it. I believe that everything we are as Christians boils down to 2 things, loving God and loving others. In the words of one of my very favorite music artists, Toby Mac, love is a verb. Loving requires an action, and connecting with others requires an action. If I want to love others, then I have to connect with them. Second, Maxwell said, discipline. How do we do that? Stop talking, start listening. It's really difficult for me to stop doing anything. My father-in-law calls me the whirlwind, and for good reason. I like to talk. I really like to talk. And God in his infinite wisdom has called me to a ministry of speaking. That's great when you're on the stage. But I've really had to work on not talking when someone else is sharing something with me. What I do is when I know I'm going to be with people, I coach myself. Here's an example of what goes on in my head. Okay, PJ, you're going to be with people tonight. It is not about you, it's about them. You don't need to offer up all this information and be the center of attention. Listen to the people you're going to be with tonight. Sense how they're feeling. Ask them questions. Be interested. Clear your mind and really focus on the other person. Try to feel what they are feeling. Maxwell said it's also a heart thing. So what does that mean? To me, having it be a heart thing means that while taking my own coaching advice is a positive thing, it would just be empty actions if I didn't include my heart. I have to consistently pray for God to change my heart in a zillion different ways. But one specific way is for God to help me not be so selfish in wanting to just talk about me. I have to pray for those people who are a part of my life. I pray for them because I care about them, but I also pray for them because you see, when I pray for them about their needs, I start to become interested in them. Yearning for selflessness is the first step. The next step is to ask. The third is just to do it. You might feel like you lack heart, that you really don't care about that person who goes on and on and on about what they think is awesome. And you might think you're just going through the motions. But sometimes that's obedience. And when you obey God, it will eventually reach your heart. God will answer your prayer, and he will change your heart. We all have opportunities to rejoice with those who rejoice, and we have opportunities to mourn with those who mourn. So what does it look like to weep with those who weep, or to mourn with those who mourn? There's an old song that I loved. It's by Toby Keith, and it's a country song. And the chorus says, I want to talk about me. I want to talk about I want to talk about number one. I want what I think, what I like, what I know, what I want, what I see. I like talking about you. But really, I just want to talk about me. It's a pretty honest song because we love to talk about ourselves. I think we all crave that validation. And what if we all followed this verse in Romans? There'd be a lot less need for validation and a lot more validating going on. Again, let me show you how not to mourn with those who mourn. Let's say it's Sunday morning and you're at church and you see one of your friends and she looks kind of down. So you go up to her and you say, how are you doing? She kind of looks down. She honestly says, actually, I'm really struggling. Here's what you don't want to do. The first thing you don't want to do is be way super happy because you feel forced to take her out of her sadness. Right? Me too! OMG! I am so bummed out from such a hard, terrible week. I know, right? Don't want to do that. The second thing you don't want to do is to be really dramatic to the point where you're being very inauthentic. You're trying to look good. So you do this. Big hug. Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. When I'm sad, you're sad. I mean, when you're sad, I'm sad. I'm really sad. Don't do that. The third thing not to do, don't be distracted. So when she says to you, I've really been struggling, don't be like, yeah, I'm listening. What were you saying? That's the third thing. Don't want to do that. The fourth thing is to completely lack empathy or compassion. She tells you she's struggling, and you say, bummer, dude. See ya. Don't want to do that. So what should you do? Because those responses are wrong on so many levels. But I bet everybody listening to me has experienced one or more of these. I know I have. I hope I never, ever use any of those on anybody. Rick Warren, who's a pastor in California at Saddleback Church, has a great quote, and it's, humility comes from admitting their weaknesses, being patient with others' weaknesses, being open to correction, and pointing the spotlight at others. That's really hard to do. Humility is a really hard pill to swallow. It's hard to admit that we're weak, but we are. It's hard to be patient with others when they so do not call for me to be patient. But that's what we're called to do. Again, it's about the other person. Love God, love others. And how does God love us? He is so patient and full of grace and mercy. Even when we constantly have to go to him over and over and over and ask for forgiveness, his love never ends. He doesn't love me any more today than he did the day I was born. And he won't love me any more the day I die than he does today. That's how we need to be with our love for others. It's a selfless act. Josh McDowell says that many people, they fail to connect while communicating because they're more interested in what they have to say. So it all comes down to this. We love God with all of our heart, soul, and mind. And then we can't stop ourselves from loving others. And when we mature into that deeper love with God, we begin to discern how to love others. Then it becomes a verb. We learn how to love others the way that Jesus did, the way that he did in the stories that we read in the New Testament. Love is a verb. It requires some action. This loving others requires lots and lots of prayer. Being in the presence of God, listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit, asking to be more like Jesus. It is in the prayers and in the asking that we genuinely learn how to love others. And when we can genuinely love others, we find ourselves with someone who needs us to share their sorrow and their joy. In order to follow Romans 12:15, we need to love God. We do that by praying and talking and listening. We also need to be committed to praying for other people, for their growth, but also to grow us in wanting to know about them. I gave you some examples, and I hope that you will remember them. To truly connect with others, we as Christians must obey the commandment that says, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. In conclusion, I want to end with something that John Maxwell wrote in our textbook. It ends with a question. First, he asks, this is something you need to have on your mind that other people are thinking when you are talking to them. So in other words, when that girl in church that you go up to, as you're approaching her, be aware that these are the questions she is asking in her head of you. Do I know what she wants? Before asking, do you know what I want? You can know a lot about a person and still not understand them. More information isn't exactly always the answer. You must understand what they want. Go beyond the head to the heart. Try to find out 3 things. Number 1, what do they dream about? Do you know what the people closest to you dream about? Do you know the people that have a desk next to your cubicle at work? What do they dream about? What do your kids dream about? What does your wife dream about? What does your husband dream about? If you don't know, as soon as this speech is over, you have a chance to go and ask him and listen intently. Second thing is, what do they sing about? If they like to sing. My husband doesn't like to sing, so I'm good on that one. But what do people like to sing about? What kind of music do they like? In other words, too, is what makes their heart sing? What gives them joy? What gives them passion? What do they love doing? You should know those things about the people that are close to you. And finally, what do they cry about? What do they cry out to God about? What do they cry about when nobody is looking? Do you know the struggles that your wife is going through? Do you know the struggles that your husband and your children are going through? Even your in-laws who may drive you crazy. What are they going through? Know what the people close to you are going through and what they're crying about, and then cry with them. How's that?
Good. Dad just called you.
18 minutes. Oh, crap. It was 18 minutes long. It was 18 freaking minutes long, and I don't care. I'm going to submit it anyway.
How long is it supposed to be?
10 minutes. I'm just going to tell him, I don't care. I don't care. I got the thing in,
What
and...
above and beyond?
Shh.